never be an issue nationwide or certainly in the state of New Hampshire. Favorable to unfavorable, how do you approach getting your message out and shaping your message to convince those on the unfavorable side to shift over to the favorable side?
Well, I think it's a lot of going to places like Geno's, talking to people one-on-one, developing a new generation of solutions and a new generation of proposals, and being willing to go out and talk about them and listen to people and improve them. And I think that if I do end up running, it'll be a very, very idea-oriented, solution-oriented campaign, and it will be very intensely focused on talking about issues rather than talking about personality or talking about things that sort of traditional politics. I think we have so many challenges right now that we very badly need a campaign that says, here's the size of the problem, and here are solutions that get you to that size solution. So we'll see over time. My hope is that people will at least give me a chance to talk with them, and will talk back with me.
Yeah.
And in that process, we'll see if we can build a majority support.
Switch gears a little bit. Now, it's very few questions, so they're all going to be switching gears, frankly. Yesterday's Washington Post, the self-described and understood author of Governor Romney's health care down in Massachusetts, came out rather vocally stating how, in quotes, he was the clear champion of the plan. He really was a consummate management consultant. And it's a persistent question flagging Governor Romney. And if you were to enter the race, at least all polling suggests he is a clear front runner within the state of New Hampshire. And I'm just wondering, do you think that ultimately will hurt him and bring his numbers down? Does that play into any strategy?
I think it depends on how he reacts to what's happening in Massachusetts. My impression is that if you listen to talk radio, if you listen to Massachusetts television, that the cost of the plan keeps going up, that the problems keep getting bigger, that if they weren't having a substantial federal subsidy, that the state would be in a huge budget crisis. And I think the governor, Governor Romney's a very smart man. He simply has to explain to what degree was this different from what he hoped for. Why is it different? And but he's a very smart guy. I think it's probably one. I have things I have to explain. He has things he has to explain. If Donald Trump runs, there are plenty of things he has to explain.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to have a certain sense of balance about it. But I hope to run a very, very positive campaign that focuses, for example, on health. I helped found the Center for Health Transformation. I wrote a book called Saving Lives and Saving Money. We have a whole series of ideas for a less expensive, more effective, more personal health system. And I'd be glad to contrast that to President Obama's Washington Center plan or any other proposal. I'm also, frankly, pretty happy to have other Republicans adopt the ideas.
I believe this last Sunday, Fox News Sunday, you clarified eloquently and sufficiently your supposed missteps surrounding your approach to Libya. And I wondered if you could clarify for New Hampshire.
Yeah, well, let me just say.
And further, actually, I bought a prop. What do you think he's thinking?
Why am I here and how do I get out of this?
Had to show you that.
That's funny. I had not seen that picture.
Yeah.
No, I think,
Look,
I recommend anybody who wants to see my position in Libya and see whether or not some reporters and some columnists have been accurate. Hot Air this morning has a 6.5-minute video that takes you from February all the way up to today. So you see me saying it. I mean, there's no question. It tells you which show I'm on, what I'm saying on which date, and you see, I think, a continuity that's pretty clear. If we weren't there, I would recommend using other means, including Egyptian, Moroccan, Jordanian, to get rid of Gaddafi, but without us doing it. Once the president says Gaddafi must go, I favor the most direct, fastest program, which is American air power combined with local Arab-speaking forward air controllers who are professionals. Again, Moroccan, Egyptian, Jordanian. Under no circumstance do I think we ought to have American ground forces there. And under no circumstance do I think we ought to have this muddled, confused, coalition-led mess that we're currently in, where the president says on national television, you know, our military goal is not to get rid of Gaddafi. Well, you're one of Gaddafi's soldiers. You're thinking, should I desert? Should I stay? And here you have the American president saying, we're not going to try to get rid of Gaddafi. So we actually reinforce the morale of Gaddafi's troops. I mean, it's the exact opposite of a sound, logical military strategy.
You concerned about a sort of domino effect in what will be the U.S. approach of picking and choosing regimes vis-a-vis Yemen, Bahrain,
But there
Syria?
are two different problems. First of all, if you thought Obama had a standard, which I don't think he does, I think it's just all words. But if he did have a standard, the standard he described for Libya could apply to countries in West Africa, they could apply to Sudan, they could apply to Zimbabwe. I mean, there are lots of places in pain where people are getting killed. It could apply to Syria. But I don't think that he has a standard. I think this is all just opportunistic amateurism. Second, I think if you were listing America's interest in that region, you would start with Iran and Pakistan, and you wouldn't get to Libya to about number 9 or 10. And so the idea that we're focusing all this energy and all these resources on Libya is, I think, an extraordinary failure of rational priority setting.
Last question. If you just share with our readers, a couple of days ago, I believe it was a speech in Texas on the country needs to return to its religious and Christian roots in your conversion to Catholicism a couple of years back. Just share that.
Well, there are two different points. There are two separate points. Let me talk first about Catholicism.
I'm trying to get as much as I can out of one
You're
question.
doing good. You're doing fine. My wife, Callista, has been singing in the Basilica Choir since 1996. The Basilica is the largest Catholic church in the United States, the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington. And as a supportive husband, I've been going every Sunday to Mass and listening to the choir. And I think over a 10-year period, I became more and more intrigued with the Eucharist and more intrigued with the experience of the Catholic family and the way in which the Church reconciles you with God. And so when Pope Benedict XVI visited, we had an opportunity to go to the Basilica because the choir was going to sing for Vespers for the Pope and the American bishops. And as a spouse, I was allowed to come and sit in the upper church, and so I got to see the Pope. And there was something about the joy in his eyes and the fact that he used Christ our hope as his slogan for that trip to America. That night I said to Monsignor Rossi, who was the rector of the Basilica, you know, I just feel compelled to become Catholic and I'd like to be received by the Church. And so I went through catechism with him and joined the Church. It's a very comforting feeling, I think. But what I said about America, that wasn't about Catholicism or Protestantism. In some ways it was about the Judeo-Christian tradition. The Founding Fathers, and I wrote a book called Rediscovering God in America, and plus I made a movie by the same name. The Founding Fathers, in our first great political document, this is not theology, this is not a sermon on Sunday. In our first great political document, the Declaration of Independence, our Founding Fathers say, we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Now, the reason I cite that is an America which believes that God personally has given you sovereignty,